Kia ora. Welcome back to new Woodcraft. This week did not go to plan. Just wanted to push the outdoor pantry project along, maybe make some drawers, tidy up a few loose ends. Instead, I broke my microphone, the workshop flooded, and I spent most of the week turning 5 pallets into 2 massive laminated slabs. So this video is not really a day 1, day 2, day 3 progress in the shop kind of video. It's more of a question. Are pallet slabs actually worth the effort? Because on one hand, the timber's free, right? If I can turn it into dry, flat, easily storable timber, then maybe it is. But on the other hand, this took about 10 hours of my time. That was all the time I had this week, so it took a whole week. Heaps of glue, planing, sawdust everywhere. So by the end of the video, I want to know if I've made something that's actually useful, or if I've just spent 3 days making a really complicated, kind of low value plank. So yeah, let's get into it. Welcome to the slightly forced nature of this talking head stuff. I broke my microphone yesterday, so all the talking head stuff's going to have to be done from in the office for a little while. Hopefully just this one video. Not ideal, but that's not the only thing going on. Over the weekend, we had some massive rains and the workshop flooded again. I was out here yesterday on my hands and knees in about an inch of water trying to unblock the drains. In the end, I had to take the saber saw to the pipe at the back end to free it all up. Yeah, it's not good. So yeah, before I can even pretend to make any kind of woodwork stuff, I'm going to tidy this shop up, so let's get that done. That's much better. It's not fixed, but it's better. And I really need to get to that drain as soon as possible, but, you know, she cost the money. So, what was the original plan? The outdoor pantry still waiting, and with the square table and the planter boxes out the door, I should be a full steam ahead on that, I reckon. Except I still need more material. I still need clean panels to work with. And I still have a heap of unfinished projects underneath the workbench. Don't tell anyone. And anyway, last week we left off with the level 2 panel in clamps. So let's have a look at that first. So this is the level 2 panel from last week. You can see it has much thinner strips than the level 1 panel we built earlier. Side by side they look really similar, but you can see kind of wide strips on the level 1 and thin strips on the level 2. The theory is that each individual strip being smaller can have less influence on the whole thing. So if one little strip wants to bend, it's not going to have the power to influence the whole panel. Whereas if one of the bigger strips in an L1 panel wants to bend, maybe it will bend the whole panel because it's a much bigger part of the whole. Now with these two, hopefully I have enough material to finish the drawer boxes for the outdoor pantry, but I doubt it. Drawers just use up a heap of raw material. Have you ever seen anybody kind of doing a video for a cabinet with lots of drawers and they unload a heap of 6x4 plywood sheets off the trailer? There's 1, 2, 3, 4. They use them all up. It's a lot of material. So, you know, I'm probably going to need more. Anyway, while I've been thinking about this level 2 and level 1 panels, I've got an idea in my head for a level 3 panel. And yep, this one uses even thinner strips. Now the problem with thinner strips is they're really hard to glue up. So the more strips you have, the longer the first ones in the row have been sitting before you get to the last one. So the the glue up just gets way more stressful and it's less likely to be successful. So in my little head, what I think we'll do is we'll use big strips like the level 1 panels, and I'll make 3 layers of those. So on top of each other, spaced out so that they overlap and there's no, weak points. Glue that up into one massive panel, and then slice strips off it, lay them on their sides and glue them back together. A lot of gluing, I know, but hopefully it won't take too long, because you're just dealing with the big strips to start with, and then when you're dealing with the slices, they're long single run, so each run will have 3 strips in it. Does that make sense? I think it makes sense. Anyway, to do that, the first thing I need to do is get some more raw material. So I have 5 pallets out in the driveway. So first job of the day, first real job, get out there and do some pallet busting. Let's get into it. I'm starting to think about timber in terms of volume rather than actual pieces of wood. How much actual volume is in this pile of pallets? Not how many boards, not how many pallets. Actual usable timber. Because pallets are awkward. They take up a lot of room. They get wet, they hide nails, nail holes. They're dirty, they're uneven. And until they're broken down and processed, they're not really timber stock. They're potential timber stock. And in a big workshop, maybe that's okay. You can have piles of maybe useful one-day timber. It stays dry, you can stack it up in a corner if you've got a warehouse or a barn. But when you've got a single garage workshop and no outside covered storage, yeah, potential stock. So I'm keen to use pallet wood. I'm keen to recycle. So I need a better system. I need to turn big, awkward piles of ratty timber into useful, easily stacked, flat, dry timber. Can pallets efficiently become useful working stock? But I'm attacking these pallets the easy way. With a circular saw, I'm slicing off the boards and leaving the worst of the nails and ratty stuff behind. That doesn't mean I'm wasting everything, but I'm saving as much time as possible and just getting the good stuff as quickly as possible. The offcuts, they'll all get burned. We've got a fire. This is New Zealand. That's how we heat our house. So by using the circular saw, rather than to pry every board off perfectly, I save some of that effort. At least that was the idea. But I tried for 4 out of the 5 pallets to do this with an underpowered little Ryobi battery saw. And I don't know if you can tell from the clips, but that was a real struggle. And sometimes the old noggin doesn't work fast enough. I went for the properly powered plug-in saw for the last pallet. Yeah, would have saved a heap of time if I started with that. And that's one of the lessons for this week, I guess. If you've got a big, rough, heavy job and you have a big, rough, heavy tool, start with that. Don't muck around with the cute little handy-dandy battery-powered tool. Nothing like a plugged-in version. Now, 5 pallets doesn't necessarily look like a lot, but once you've chopped it up, stacked it, it's actually quite a bit of timber there. It's still rough, it's still dirty, it still needs a lot of work, but it's no longer a pile of pallets, it's material. You can see the potential in the stacks. I've got a few of these longer boards that I did the old way with the pallet puller, and I would still do that for Aussie style pallets, what I call them, but these Euro ones with the blocks at each section, I don't think I'll be trying to pull any of them apart ever again. I think straight to the circular saw for them. Anyway, I had a bunch of long ones, so I've got to get the nails out of them. So, yeah. And check out these nails. Why are they so long? That's ridiculous. Tell me, guys, if you're out there, is that just the result of giving the apprentice a nail gun on his first day? I mean, they don't need to be that long. And you can see why people argue that pallet wood is not free. You can see it here. You pay in time, you pay in blades, you pay in planer knives, you pay in glue. You pay big time in glue. And you pay with your patience. This stuff takes a long time. But if the wood's good enough in the end, maybe it still works. The next job's sorting. The boards aren't all the same thickness, so I sort them into groups. 3 groups in this case. Within each group, the boards are pretty close in thickness. Not exact, but close enough that I can plane them down to a common thickness without removing too much. And that matters because each pass through the plane is a trade. The cleaner and flatter a board gets, the more material disappears. So I'm trying to remove enough material that the boards are usable, but not so much that most of it is waste. Sawdust. This is where the whole pile starts to change. Before this stage, the boards still feel like pallet wood. After the planer, they start to look like timber. Still low-grade timber, still random, still a bit chaotic. You can start to see what you actually have. The knots show up, and the splits show up, and the nail holes show up, and the dodgy edges really show up. And from here the question becomes, how ruthless should I be? Because I can keep more timber if I accept more flaws. But can I make a better slab if I cut out more defects now? Day 2, and the plan's already shifted. I wanted to have the level 3 panel in clamps by now. I wanted to have the drawers for the outdoor pantry moving right along. Instead, I'm still processing material. And that's the reality of working with reclaimed timber. The interesting part is the finished object. The slow part is getting to that finished object. So first up, parallel edges on the table saw. This removes a bit of our volume, but there's nothing I can do about that. They need to stick together. There's no way around that. The edges are rough, they need to be straight. And square the ends. More timber disappears. And I was pretty aggressive with this step. All the nail holes, most of the knots, the cracks and splits, cut them all out. So I lost a lot of volume. In the end though, there's not a single nail hole in this whole lot. And that feels good. But it also means that 5 pallets worth of material becomes significantly less. And that's the conflict in this video. Not one dramatic disaster. It's 100 small frictions. Wet workshop, broken mic, awkward pallets, long nails, underpowered saw, different thicknesses, planing, ripping, trimming, glue, clamps, time. And this is why pallet projects can be misleading. The material might be free, but usable timber is most definitely not. Now we get to the layout, and this is where the whole thing starts to make sense. Because laid out on the bench, these are no longer just random pallet bits. They're clean strips. Same thickness, straight edges, squared ends. No nail holes, no major defects. This is the point where the material starts to look intentional. It looks like 5 pallets will give me enough material for 2 level 3 pallet wood blanks. Not finished panels, not furniture yet, but 2 very big laminated blanks. I think that might be worth it. The size I'm aiming for is 1500 millimeters by 300 millimeters by 60 millimeters thick. So just one slab is worth about 27,000 cubic centimeters of timber, or 0.027 cubic meters. That sounds tiny when you say it in cubic meters, but on the bench it feels substantial. That's a proper chunk of wood. And if I can store it, keep it dry, and use it later to make cool stuff, then maybe that changes the way I think about pallet timber. And now for the messy bit, glue up. And this is where pallet wood panels really start to show their cost. There's a lot of pieces, a lot of faces, a lot of edges, a lot of ways for things to slide around, a lot of glue. The problem with making one big thing out of a lot of little things, every little thing takes time. Every piece needs glue. Every piece needs to be positioned. Every piece can move. Every piece adds a tiny error. And by the end of the glue up, all those tiny errors are trying to add up to be one big problem. So I'm working through it as best I can. Glue on the edges, glue on the big faces, get the strips stacked, put some pressure on, try to keep everything aligned, try not to panic. This first glue up took over an hour, and that's a long time to be dealing with glue. Honestly, it feels too long. Not impossible, but too long. If I'm going to do this again, the process needs to get better. Because making one big slab as an experiment is one thing. Making this the normal way of processing pallet wood, that's different. Still, this first one's in clamps. That's progress. Not the progress I imagined for this week, but progress nonetheless. Day 3. Let's get this sucker out of clamps. Wax paper comes off, mostly. Looks like I need a crowbar to remove it from the jig. That's a worrying sign. There we go. And looks good. That looks really good. And this is the changing point of this video. Because up until now, this has been a lot of effort, a lot of mess. But the moment the slab comes out of the jig, the argument starts to change. This is no longer a pile of pallets. This is a big, dense, flat blank. About 1500 by 300 by 60 mils. 27,000 cubic centimeters of reclaimed material. 2.5 pallets worth in one compact slab. And that's interesting. I could stack these 2 deep along the back wall of my shop. At that rate, I can store roughly 80 pallets worth of timber across that small space with minimal impact on the rest of the shop. That's roughly 2.16 cubic meters of material. And the big thing is, it's dry. Not outside, not in the weather, not stacked awkwardly in the driveway. Dry, compact, usable stock. Now obviously this is not the same as buying clean, perfect commercial timber. It's still reclaimed pallet wood. It's not a structural glue lamb. It's not certified. It's not something I could sell as an engineered beam. But for furniture parts, for experiments, for small tables, drawers, legs, there are possibilities there. Quite a few possibilities if I stop mucking around and actually make a thing. I laid out the second slab off camera. By this point, I'd used about 90% of the 5 pallets, and I've learned a few things. The first glue up took over an hour. The second only took 45 minutes. Still not quick, but much better. And the biggest change was how I handled the glue. Lesson 1, use a glue bottle, not the roller tray. The roller tray sounds sensible, but it slowed me down a lot. The bottle was faster, more direct, less faffing about. Lesson 2, use the magic finger spreader, particularly on the edges. Patent pending, of course. For the narrow edges, the finger's just faster and better. Lesson 3, use the roller, but only where it works. On the big flat faces. It's great. On everything else, stop trying to be clever. And that's probably the most useful lesson from the whole experiment. The material might be free, but the method matters. If the process is clumsy, the slabs are too expensive in time. As the process improves, the idea starts to make sense. And that's what I'd expect if I did this again. The first time's always slow while you're working out the method. Second time's faster. Third time, probably faster again. Not fast, but not stupidly slow. Second panel out of the jig. And there it is. 2 pallet Mega-Slabs. That's a satisfying sound. And this is the comparison that really matters. At the start, I had a driveway full of pallets. Awkward, bulky, in the way, getting rained on. By the end, I had 2 compact slabs on the bench and a clean driveway. Well, cleanish. And that's the real value. Not that I've magically created expensive, sellable timber. I didn't. If you compare these slabs to something like the acacia laminated panels you get from Bunnings, not really worth it. These slabs aren't worth hundreds and hundreds of dollars. They're just homemade, reclaimed timber blanks. But that's not really the point. The point is that I turned 5 pallets into clean, dry, compact, usable material. And in a tiny shop, that might be worth more than the dollar value, because space has value, dry storage has value, ready to use stock has value, and having material on hand when an idea strikes, that has value. So, are pallet Mega-Slabs worth the effort? My answer is, it depends. Depends on what you want from them. If the goal is cheap timber, probably not. It took me 10 hours across 3 days to achieve these 2 slabs. The process used a lot of glue, a lot of power, made a mess, used up blades. And the finished slabs still need more work before they become furniture. So if I was doing this just to save money on timber, I'd be kidding myself. But if the goal is to build a stockpile of reclaimed timber that's ready to go, it's compact, it's dry, it's ready to make stuff out of, then yes, I think this works. Not every pallet's worth this much effort. Not every board should be saved. And I definitely need to keep improving the process. But as a way of converting bulky waste into usable workshop stock, this feels like a win. Because the value's not in a slab sitting on the bench or up against a wall. The value's in what that slab can become. So that was a week in the workshop. Not the week that I had planned. No real progress on the outdoor pantry. No day 1, day 2, day 3 project. Broken mic, flooded workshop. Too much pallet processing, too much glue, too much mess. But also 2 big slabs of useful material that didn't exist at the start of the week. And I think that's worth something. This is one of the things that I'm slowly learning with reclaimed timber. The project doesn't start when you cut joinery. The project starts when you decide what material is worth saving. Sometimes it is, sometimes it probably isn't. This time, I think it was. Because now, those 5 pallets aren't sitting in the rain. They're not taking up the driveway. They're 2 clean, dry, compact blanks, waiting to become something better. Next week though, I need to get back to the practical stuff. To handle these slabs, the table saw needs an in-feed upgrade. The outdoor pantry is just sitting there waiting, and I still have a heap of stuff unfinished under the workbench. But for this week, I'm going to call it a win. A slow win, a messy win, but a win all the same. If you enjoyed this sort of reclaimed timber experiment, stick around. I'm sure you'll see these 2 slabs again in the future. Thanks for watching. Ka kite ano o I a kotu. I'll see you all again.